And now, Ralston Reports.
Welcome back across Nevada to Ralston Reports. Representatives of the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada descended on Carson City today, meeting with legislators and even the governor to talk about the mining industry's long constitutional protection for taxation. Did they have any success? What are they trying to do? Does it have any chance, or will the mining lobbyists kill it? Here to talk about that, up in Reno at our KRNV station, is Laura Martin of Plan, and down here we have Hugh Jackson of The Agenda. Welcome to both of you. Laura Martin, let me stick with you. Are you optimistic or even more pessimistic after today's visits?
First, I want to say thank you for having us on, and happy Valentine's Day to both of you. After our meetings, we had about 60 volunteers for Plan here meeting with their legislators. And I would say that we feel a little bit more optimistic. I think some people have changed their tone a little bit, and I think people see the power of the people at work, and that, you know, this isn't something that we're going to forget. This is something that we're going to continue to work at, and we want to see SJR15 pass as easily as it did in 2011. It
did pass overwhelmingly without any Republican votes, however, if I remember correctly. Did you talk to any Republicans who you thought there might be some give this time?
I personally did not speak to any Republicans. I know that Michael Roberson and I believe Ben Kekeffer also voted for it in 2011. And
that's right, you're right. I take that
Senator
back. You're right. You're right. They did. Michael Roberson had those repressed childhood memories from mining, and he decided to vote for it. I think you're correct.
Yes. You know, Michael Roberson is ready to vote for it again. I know there's a phantom legal brief that's floating around, but no one has actually seen it with their own eyes, that claims that mining would not pay any taxes, or they would pay less. Like I said, no one has seen that briefing. I don't know if it's like written on the inside of a mining lobbyist's eyelids, but you know, I guess that's what they're waiting on to move on it.
Well, they have access to plenty of lawyers, and I want to turn to Hugh Jackson for a moment here. This is somewhat complicated. I think most people, maybe even watching, they're saying, what? There's taxation protection in the Constitution? We'll distill this real quickly. The miners wrote the Constitution, so they put this constitutional protection here. The argument that Laura Martin is referring to, though, is essentially that there's a section in there, I believe it's Section 5, in which essentially says mining's not going to be taxed the same way. It's going to be capped at 5%. The argument that the mining industry is going to put forth that she's alluding to is, listen, the actual cap is lower, that for other businesses is lower, so you're not going to be able to charge them as much as you can with that constitutional provision in there.
And they would love to take this argument off into the deep weeds with this observation. Essentially what they're saying is that, well, we're a property tax. Property taxes are capped at 3.65 or whatever it is percent. And so if you take out our wording in the Constitution, then we'll lower our taxes to that rate, and so you'll get even less money. Look, if the taxes were going to get lowered, then they wouldn't care if they'd be supporting this thing instead of opposing it. When you take them out of the Constitution, I'm not an attorney, I don't know, but I wonder if this whole business of their property tax argument doesn't rest on the language that's in the Constitution already. And when you strip that out, then effectively what happens is the legislature can do things that they can't do now, like tax minerals the same way that minerals are taxed in other states.
Let me stop you, because there is also the constitutional provision that says you can't tax it any other way, and that they obviously like that, but I mean, it's counterintuitive to anyone with any common sense, right? Of course they want constitutional protections, because that then prevents other kinds of things. By the way, I should mention to the viewers that there are about 24 lobbyists for the mining industry up there. We couldn't get any of them to be willing to appear on there, and that's before they even knew that you were going to be on, Mr. Jackson. And
yeah, they won't come on the agenda either.
But I guess the serious question here is, what do you think they really are afraid of? Since they have so much sway in Carson City, they probably could stop anything anyhow, couldn't they?
Well, if SJR15 passes the legislature the second time, then of course it goes to the voters, and then it's up to the voters to decide whether they want to basically divorce, as Plan put it today, the industry from the Constitution. Once it's out of the Constitution, then the legislature can treat it like they treat other industries with respect to taxes, the same way the legislature treats, for instance, the gaming industry. They can establish different forms of taxes. They can mess with the rates, taking them up and down. I mentioned earlier other states. Where I'm from in Wyoming, they've got a 6% 3% state tax, a 6% county tax. That's not including federal taxes that gold never has to pay. But I mean, there are a lot of different things that can happen, and the burden that this industry is paying right now is ludicrously low.
We're going to talk about that in a minute. Let me ask you again, Laura Martin, when you were up there today, there are a lot of new legislators, as there always are. There's always a lot of turnover. Talking to some of these rookies, are they surprised to hear about this constitutional protection? Did a lot of them not really know anything about this before you talked to them?
You know, there is some education that is going on. I personally didn't meet with anybody who was a freshman assembly person. I made it a point to meet with my elected officials and also make sure the people on the appropriate committees who are going to deal with this bill were being met with. But I think even if it's not a freshman lobbyist, you know, when I say, hey, did you know that the LCB testified in 2011 that nothing will change if SJR15 is passed? They seem to not know that, and they also are not aware that mining's taxation, you know, level is also part of our Nevada revised statute. So it's in law. It's an ironclad thing. SJR15 is just one piece of the puzzle.
Exactly, and if it was just a property tax, then why can they deduct so many different things that other businesses can't from their taxes? We're going to talk a bit more about that, but we're going to take a break, and I just want to give a shout out now to the 24 mining lobbyists who surely are having a Ralston Reports watch party tonight since they were afraid to come on. When we come back, we'll talk more about efforts to change the way the mining industry is taxed. Stick around.
Stay up to date on upcoming programs and join the discussion on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Ralston Reports. And now, Ralston Reports.
Welcome back across Nevada to Ralston Reports. Progressives went to the legislature today to see if they could get SJR15 passed again. That's removing mining's taxation protection from the Constitution. How successful were they? Does it have a chance to go through the legislature again? Laura Martin is up in our KRNV studio. She's with PLANevada. Hugh Jackson from the Agenda, who's done extensive studies in the mining industry, is here in studio. Laura Martin, you ran into the governor up there. Did you get his vote?
I don't think so. He told us good luck. He was in a very good mood, and we gave him some Valentine's candies that said, stand up to mining and be a leader. So I hope he enjoys those.
I have news for you in case you didn't know this, Ms. Martin. He's always in a good mood. It's scary. I don't know what's wrong with the guy. But some serious question. You did go up there and you met with all these folks. You gave out Halloween candy. I mean St. Valentine's Day candy that had all these slogans on it. I mean, this is a media stunt. You want to bring attention to this issue. What you're really afraid of, right, is that no one's really paying attention. It gets lost in the crucible of the legislature and suddenly SJR15 is dead, right? That's what you're worried about.
Oh, I'm not worried about it at all, and I think the people who should be worried about it are the members of the Nevada legislature. We're not compromising. SJR15 will pass this year or nothing, and I'm not willing to see that happen. So we're going to do, Plan is going to do all that we can to make sure it passes, to educate legislators, to reach out to voters in Nevada, to get them to the legislature, to get them, you know, writing to their legislators, calling them. This isn't just a one-day spectacle because it was fun. This is part of our organizing efforts to, you know, that we do at Plan to make sure everyone is involved and everyone's making sure that, you know, we are creating a Nevada that's fair and just, and that includes making sure that mining and no industry has a special protection that no man, woman, child, or business gets in our state's constitution.
Yeah, of course. I mean, every time I hear it, it's so nonsensical, right? They should not have protections in the Constitution. It is a very difficult issue to understand. It doesn't make sense to most people, and that's how the mining industry has been successful in muddying the water. Sheila Leslie, who used to be in the state Senate, fought for this for a long time, and she says there's no hope of renegotiating how mining is taxed unless that special provision removing them from the Constitution. Here's what she said. She had an op-ed in the News and Review up in Reno. While the industry insists the net proceeds of minerals tax is a property tax, it acts like an income tax. I mentioned this earlier, allowing deductions for all sorts of things with the net effect of some mines actually paying zero in net proceeds of minerals taxes. Zero. Until a few loopholes were closed last session, the mines could even deduct the cost of their dues to the World Gold Council. I remember that, an industry marketing organization. They are taxed in a way that no industry is taxed. They have a better deal than the gaming industry has in Nevada.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, when the price of gold was lower, for several years, the entire industry, and let's, when we talk about mining, we're talking about gold. That's more than 90% of the value, all the minerals produced in Nevada, and more than 90% of that is produced by two companies, Barrick and Newmont. So that's basically what we're talking about here. Earlier in the decade, when the price was lower, the entire industry, the gold mining industry as a whole, was deducting about 75% of the entire gross value of the gold every year. Now, because the price has gone up, that's lowered to a little more than half that's being deducted. But that still means that they're only paying this 5% tax on less than half of the gross value. You take it on a mine-by-mine basis, and as you know, I done a lot of reports about earlier in the decade showing, more than 100 times that mines had paid zero net property. That's what they want to call it, a property tax, net proceeds of mining taxes. But even with prices as high as they are, in 2011, the last year that we've got numbers for, there was $250 million worth of gold mined at Nevada mines at which zero taxes were paid, zero net proceeds taxes. One of those mines, the Jarrett Canyon project, 5 of the last 6 years they have paid zero taxes.
It's a good deal if you can get it. Hugh Jackson could go on forever on this, and it might be fun. But we have to take a break, and when we come back, the mining industry says it pays a lot of money into the state budget. Is it right? We'll talk about that when Ralston Reports returns.
Find archive programs by going online to mynews3.com and clicking on Ralston Reports.
Welcome back across Nevada to Ralston Reports. We're talking about the taxation of mining, or lack thereof. There's an effort underway in the legislature to try to take the protections that are in the Constitution. Yes, in 1864, the mining industry got a great break when it wrote the Constitution and protected itself. We're talking to Hugh Jackson of The Agenda, who's here in Las Vegas, Laura Martin of the Progressive Leadership Alliance in Nevada. She was up in Carson City today. Real quickly, Laura Martin, we don't have that much time left, but I want to read you some figures. The mining industry paid a lot into the state budget a couple years ago. They came up with these figures, but they're right. $250 million or so net proceeds, $131 million in sales taxes, $33 million in property taxes, $8 million in the modified business tax. The mining industry pays a lot of money into the state budget.
They do pay a lot of money in our state's budget, and so do a lot of other businesses and industries, but they take a lot more from us. And it's interesting that you're mentioning the budget, because the Legislative Counsel Bureau provides this booklet that has the state's budget, and mining it shows tax, tax from liquor, from gaming, and mining's contribution is so small it doesn't even show up on this chart.
That's the budget in brief, and people should know they don't have to go to Carson City to pick up that booklet. Go on the legislative website and they can get access to the budget in brief. One more quick thing. I know Plan is interested, as I have been for a couple of decades, in broadening the tax base. Are you worried that focusing so much on mining takes away from what I would say is the bigger issue, that you need to broaden the tax base?
No, I'm sure our legislators are very intelligent people, and they can walk and chew gum, but at the same time, there's a lot of problems that they're tackling, and they can also pass SJR15, deal with the teachers' tax initiative, and broaden our tax base and do what needs to be done.
I hope you're right. We only have less than 30 seconds. Do you worry about what I just said? I mean, you agree with me on broadening the tax base?
It's not an either-or proposition. I mean, I've been having that argument with the mining industry for years. They always say, oh, that means you hate a big broad-based business tax. No, I want both. One other point, though. SJR15, when it passed in 2011, arguably was the most interesting thing the Nevada legislature has ever done. And if they blow an opportunity to pass this again, it's going to be inexcusable.
That's certainly not true. I'm going to tell you some great legislative stories. Hugh Jackson, a pleasure having you on the program.
Thanks,
Laura Martin, thanks in Reno for coming on the program.